You're here. Welcome to the Masterminding Success podcast. They say if you want to be successful in business and in life, then surround yourself with successful people. So pull up a seat. The mastermind is about to begin.
Did you ever realize that a lock turns a door into a wall?
Oh, yes.
Hey, hey, you made it. Glad you could join us for another episode of the Masterminding Success podcast. We're your hosts, Keith Wheeler
and Nuria Colby.
And what are we going to be talking about today, Nuria?
Today, we're going to be talking about building a brand. That's a huge topic.
It is a huge topic, and you know, who knows, when this may end up being multiple episodes, but yeah, you know, first I did want to make it clear that at least in my definition, there's a difference between building a business and building a brand. Those are two different things. You can build a business and not have a brand. But that said, I have found personally that building a brand is what takes my business to the next level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also you could have a business and it becomes a brand without you realizing.
Yeah, unintentionally, right?
Unintentionally, yes. Because when people talk about building a brand, especially people who are starting their first businesses, they kind of think that building a brand is all about having a logo, having your design a certain way. And actually, that's just a small part of it, because building a brand to me is more like people recognizing you for certain characteristics, you know, recognizing you for good customer service or recognizing you for something else other than a logo, if you know what I mean. Does that make sense?
No, that makes perfect sense. I mean, you know, I know we talk about books a lot, but, you know, when you think of Stephen King, you know, Stephen King doesn't have a logo, but Stephen King is a brand, you know.
That's the brand.
You know, if
you
know it. And what that means is you see that name, you know what to expect. You know, you already have some preconceived notions, whether you've never read one of his books or seen one of his, you know, a movie based on his book or whatever, you already know what to expect ahead of time because of that brand recognition, you know. And that's really where a brand stands out. But I agree, your business could turn into a brand unintentionally, you know. And that's not a bad thing. It's just a matter of what I try to do is I try to be as cognizant as possible to make sure that my business is ready to be a brand if that comes along, you know what I mean? Because like, for example, my YouTube channel, I was not ready for it to be a brand, and you know, it's called Keith Wheeler Books. So unfortunately, that means that I really can't talk about anything other than books on that channel, you know, because I ended up unintentionally turning that into a brand and like limiting myself with the potential that I can do on that brand.
But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because then you can really have a focused brand. You're focusing on books, which is great. I've got the opposite problem in a way, because I called my YouTube channel The Home Boss. The idea was that I was going to talk about starting your own business from home, making money online from home, all those different things. But in reality, sometimes I think I should have niched down further and I should have focused on something. And that's what happened, actually, because I started talking about low content books in particular. And that's become my main focus. And that's got nothing to do with The Home Boss, really. But so I'm trying to expand that again into what the original idea was. It's a tricky one. Sometimes it's hard to get it right from the beginning, and brands evolve as well. So that's the other thing.
They do. They do. Just like in business in general, you know, things evolve. But I agree with you. You know, there's a lot of preconceived notions that if I'm going to build a brand, then, well, first of all, that I have to build a brand, which you don't.
No.
You know, you don't have to build a brand. There are definitely pros and cons to that, you know, to having a brand. But, you know, you don't need a logo. It's, you know, the name, the way it's already created, you know, the way it's written, like the example I gave of Stephen King, you know, even though he doesn't have a logo, if you look at his books, his name is written in the same font, the same size, that's still his brand.
Yes,
and so
absolutely.
even though it's not a logo, it's still brand recognition. You see that name, you see it like that, and you know what to expect.
Yeah. I think that is the key word here, brand recognition.
Mm-hmm.
What is a brand good for? It's basically so that people recognize it, and because people want to be familiar with things. They either trust a brand or they don't trust a brand. And if they trust your brand, then they will likely be repeat customers and come back to you. And that will then make your brand grow. Obviously, it can have the opposite effect. And if people don't like your brand, then you will fail. But the idea is for people to recognize your brand and have good feelings with that recognition, associating your brand with good customer service, good products, good, everything, a positive impression of what you do, basically. And in the case of Stephen King, we all know what he does and what he does it so well. And yeah, you're right. He is his own brand.
Yeah.
That's actually something I didn't think about before. But there are a lot of brands that are the actual person who started the company. They become the brand. So that happens a lot in the cosmetics field, Estee Lauder, or all of those. There's lots of examples like that.
Yeah, and and I'm glad you brought up repeat customers, because that's actually I had a little note about that, because that's really what it comes down to is you brand loyalty. And when you have a brand, whatever that brand is, whether you've got a logo or you don't, or if it's just your name, whatever the brand that you have decided to do, again, your goal is to get that customer loyalty, because customer loyalty is really the closest thing we can get in business to I hate saying the word, passive income, and that is the more repeat customers that you have, the less you have to spend on advertising and everything else, because you're still advertising, but you're advertising with word of mouth, and and it all comes down to quality, right?
Yes.
I mean, whether it's quality customer service or quality products or whatever your business is all about, it's and I know in this day and age that we don't necessarily always have control over the quality of the products. If you're doing, for example, merch, you're creating the design, so you got the quality of the design, but you're not making the shirt. And so it's, you do have to give up a little bit of, control when it comes to certain things like that. But what you get in return is you don't have to pay to do it. It's completely free.
That's right.
And so, but the important thing is to have as much positive, brand recognition as possible. The good thing is getting to what you were saying about, it also can work against you. If you don't have good customer service, or you don't put out good quality products, the good thing is you can, if you decide to change that around and do something, change things in a more positive way, you can always create a new brand. There are plenty of businesses out there that physical business or online businesses that end up, kind of changing directions and rebranding, if you will, and completely bringing themselves from almost in the gutter to bringing themselves up.
Yes.
And so, but I really think that, getting back to what we were saying, you don't necessarily have to have a brand, but I truly think that a brand is the best way to get that customer loyalty, because again, you need customer recognition. You need someone to be able to recognize you compared to your competitors.
That's right. Yeah.
And again, it doesn't have to be a logo, but
no, it's what you're known for. You can be known for great quality if you sell products. You can be known for a particular niche that nobody else has, or a lot of people ask me about books. Can you build a brand for your books? You've probably had that question as well.
Absolutely.
And I find that it's actually, for certain books, yes, definitely build a brand. I would say they all have to have something in common. I talk about low content books, so I don't know what it's like for fiction or non-fiction. You probably know more about that, but for low content books, I would say it's a no-brainer to create a brand for coloring books, for example, like Anne Summer has done, or not Anne Summer, Jade Summer. Anne Summer is something completely different here in the UK, but Jade Summer has done has created a brand for coloring books, and there are lots of examples for certain types of books. You could brand your puzzle books, you could brand children's books, there's so many things you can do. And the whole reason to do that is because you want people to recognize you and to keep buying off you rather than somebody else. So the books, for example, would have to be all of a certain type, coloring books altogether. You wouldn't mix coloring books and planners, for example, because you want to be known for coloring books or you want to be known for planners, but mixing both together doesn't really work. What do you think about that? Have you ever branded your books or thought about the process of doing that?
I absolutely do. There are like, I have some books that are under my name, in the book realm. Most, when you talk about brands, you're basically talking about pen names, the author name, kind of like what
That's
I said
right.
with Stephen King.
Yeah.
Yes, you can have logos and all that other good stuff if you want to, but you don't need to.
No.
But yeah, I have different brands for the different niches that I'm in. And for the most part, with the exception of the ones that are under my name, mine are more broad. I mean, I do have some puzzle books, under my name, but and I have written books, children's books and young adult novels, and a lot of books in the softball niche, but they still are all related, because technically young adults, picture books, those are still children's books. And so
Yes.
I still have that same overarching theme. And so that's my brand. And then, like you said, with my puzzle books, that's a different brand name. With other niches I'm in, it's different, and I don't necessarily use the same brand name even with puzzle books across children's versus adult.
That's right. Yeah.
Sometimes I do. It depends on what the theme of the puzzle books are, but some many times I don't. And so it really does. It comes down to, you want your customer not only to know, like, and trust you, but you also want them to know, like, and trust and know what to expect.
Yes.
And it's those expectations and knowing, like, before you even come out with your next product, whether it's a book or whatever, they know, one, it's going to be good quality. Two, they know what it's going to be. For example, if you own a restaurant, and then you start creating some I don't know, some crocheted stuff, it's going to be kind of weird, and they're not going to be expecting that,
Yes.
And so that might be a different way to go. And so yeah, you want people to be able to know what to expect. I mean, I guess that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to be on brand, kind of, like, I think the restaurant was a perfect example. Or you can't call it Giuseppe's Italian Restaurant and then serve Chinese food. It's not what the customer expects. And branding is basically fulfilling that expectation and meeting that expectation, which can create a really good brand. And the lesser brands, the ones that don't do it so well, they will not succeed so much. But the ones that do it well, I think a brand can really lift that business and make it and help it grow, basically. Yeah.
And I know we said numerous times that you don't have to have a logo, which is true, but I don't want it to sound like that's like having a logo is a bad thing. I mean, having a logo is basically a visual representation of what we're just talking about. It's a visual representation of what to expect. When I see that logo, it's just like when I hear the name Stephen King. When I see that logo, I already know what to expect because of my previous experience. Again, going back to that customer loyalty. But But also, if you do decide to do a logo, you want it to be something that is easily recognizable at a small size, because most people are using their phones like majority of the time. So they need to be able to recognize it. And keeping in mind that although repeat customers are ideal, at some point those repeat customers had to start somewhere. And so you want that logo to be something recognizable that they know just by looking at it, at least a little bit of what to expect from your brand, from, again, whether it's a restaurant, a book, or whatever, you want them to be able to look at that and be like, okay, that, that's a pizza. It's going to be a pizza place. I get, going back to what you're saying, if I have a logo and it's got a pizza and it says so-and-so's pizzeria, and then I go there and it's Chinese food, it's, it's a huge disconnect. And so, if you do decide to have a logo, and, to go along with your brand, then you do need it to be something that, again, ties in and makes sense, but also is something, that's something that you can see is very clear, well colored, that you can see at a small thumbnail size. Those are
a really good example, Apple, because I always think the best logos are the ones where you recognize not just the logo, but the name. IKEA is another good one, because it's just the font basically and the name, nothing else, and the colors. So a color can represent a brand. Apple, obviously the logo is an apple, so we know it's this is another topic, isn't it? Logos, what are the best logos
and brand naming and all that other stuff. But I think what it just comes down to is keeping it simple.
Absolutely.
It's so many times in business, as in life, we like to overthink things.
Definitely.
I try to, I want to, my brand is going to be about this and this and this and this and this. So I got to cram that all into my brand name, or I got to cram it all into my logo. And no, you don't. What's your overarching idea? What is, what do you want people, when they see your brand name, when they see your logo, whatever, what do you want them to know? If they know nothing about your business, what do you want them to know? What's that key thing that's going to get them to come to you? What are they looking for? Because that's the important thing, is whatever you want them to know is kind of secondary. What's most important is what do they want to know about your business? And that's how you get in those new customers. You can't make a repeat customer if you don't get them in the door. But that's whether it's a physical building or, online, if you don't get them to your website, you don't get them to your storefront, whatever, then there's no chance of them being a repeat customer if they don't buy from you the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. And staying on brand as well, because then people know what to expect.
It's very easy to, especially when you start seeing some success, you start seeing success and you're like, all right, wow, what can I do? What can I do to double down? What can I do to make it better? And making things better is great. And even, growing your offering, whatever that may be, that's great. But again, it goes back to what you were saying, is make sure that you stay on brand.
Yeah, because that can backfire. I can't remember. Was it Burger King? They did a trial here in London, and they had I think it was one day only. I can't really remember, but for one day only, I think it was, everything in their store was vegan. And that was great for vegans, but they had quite a bit of flack for that.
Yeah, I'm sure they did.
It wasn't on brand. We know that Burger King is going to make us fat and is going to be unhealthy, and people like that and accept that, and if you stray away from it, somehow it can backfire. Personally, I thought it was a brilliant idea, because it was trialing something new and it was catering for a new set of customers. But going by the Twitter comments, it wasn't maybe a best exercise, because it wasn't on brand. That's all it was.
Well, and it's also, it's okay to experiment. It's okay to grow your business and experiment. A good experiment for that would be, instead of for one day having everything vegan, offer one vegan option for a limited time.
Absolutely.
So you're still doing that experiment, but just not at that massive level. And what something at that level does is you're basically ignoring your already existing repeat customers that we talked about, and
I
you're
think that was
ignoring
the
them.
problem. Yeah, I think that was the problem, that some people felt pushed out,
Yeah.
even though every day they've got their,
Yeah.
you know, it was just for one day or whatever, how long it was. But people felt pushed out. So it's a very fine line that you have to negotiate.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it's a matter of, you know, when you start seeing success and you want to say, you know, what can I do to grow my business and take it to the next level, and, you know, do more offerings or whatever. It's okay to test things out, but again, just make sure that you do that at scale. You know, you do it at a small level, just, you know, one additional offering. Like if let's say that you're doing online print on demand shirts, and you decide, you know what about if I did cups? You know, find whatever your best selling shirt is, take that same design or a similar design, put it on a mug, and see how that one mug does. You know, you already know that the audience is there for that design, so you know that design's selling. So it's just a matter of would they be interested in a mug to go along with it, that kind of thing. And instead of, all right, I'm gonna take down all my shirts, I'm just putting up mugs now, and mugs and glasses, and plus, you know, you don't want to, going back to our previous episode, you don't want to burn yourself out by going all in and something that isn't proven, you know, for your brand and for your business. And so, you know, there's no sense in spending a lot of time and effort on something that you don't know is going to reap any benefits for you. So it's really a matter of just picking, you know, one area, whatever's my suggestion is take whatever's working the best and see what you can do to kind of build off of that. You know,
I had that actually in my as you probably know, I create children's books, and I also have a course on creating children's books. There's a Facebook group where we discuss this, and a lot of people were worried, or a few people were worried about they created their first book, and then they were thinking, oh, I haven't got a brand, I haven't got a website for the book, I haven't got an author page, I haven't got. And I was saying, hold on, you know, you've only just created your first book, don't worry about that, you know, that's something further down the line. You know, once you know what works, and once you know maybe what niche you are creating your books in. So I think sometimes people can worry about branding their business too early. I think that sometimes you have to give it time and see, what is your brand actually? What do people expect from your brand? And you can only really know that once you've existed for a little while, and you've got a few products or a few books or a few whatever it is that your business creates. So I think that is important, not to take things too quickly, not to, you know, branding should be a slow process as well. It doesn't have to be instant.
No, absolutely. And, you know, it's so many times people get lost in the weeds, you know, you spend way too much time looking at all the other stuff. And just like we said, you don't need a logo. Technically, you don't need a website. And I've seen so many people, so many quote gurus that say, oh, nowadays, you know, in this day and age, for your business, you have to have a website. I make,
not necessarily.
I make a good deal of profits from, you know, some of my brands that have absolutely no website. You know, it's a matter of, you know, obviously you need to have some way for people to find you, you know, whether it's a website or, you know, other ways.
A page, just a landing page, a Facebook page, your author page, whatever, something like that.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, but some way for people to find you, obviously, especially if it's an online business. But it doesn't necessarily have to be a website. And you know, getting back to what you're saying, you don't need to have a brand right out of the gate. And you know, this is you know, this is what my brand's going to be. I mean, if you decide you do want to, and you have put a lot of thought into what your brand's going to be, then that's fine. But one thing I don't want people to do is, again, get lost in the weeds and spend so much time figuring out that brand and everything else. And I want to make sure everything's on point before I launch my business. No, because things are going to change anyway. You know, not only will your business change, I mean, if you want it to be successful, your business is going to have to change because society changes, the environment changes, you know, customers change, you know, what they're expecting, their expectations, and, you know, and supply and demand and all that all changes. And so you need to be able to pivot and make those kind of changes if you want to continue to be successful.
Yeah.
And so the important thing is to me, less important to figure out my brand and everything else. No, start your business. You know, I mean, playing your business. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying just jump into it, but playing your business, and you can figure out the brand aspect of it later. You know, once, like you said, you get customer feedback, finding out what you're doing right, maybe what you're doing wrong, you know, because especially when you first start out, you're not going to be doing it all right. And if you knock it out of the park, well, then good, you know, congratulations, but you're a unicorn. That doesn't happen most of the time. Most of the time, it's an ongoing growing process.
It is, yes. And I wouldn't want people to worry too much about it, because when you first start, and we've all done it, you know, when you first start your business, you want to create your brand and your logo, and it's exciting and it's lovely to see your logo. But I'm telling you, I've changed my logo so many times. It's really not important how you start. It's more important to just, you know, if you really need a logo, just make something, but get your business off the ground and get that started. And as you said, getting the feedback from people, you know, what is your business actually telling people? How do they feel about it? You know, and then build on that rather than worrying about logos or websites or anything like that. Yeah.
Right.
As long as you've got your logistics in place and people can get hold of you and can contact you, and as long as you've got those things in place, the rest just comes in time.
Yeah, the rest is just icing on the cake.
That's it.
Well, because I mean, just think about it. I mean, think of big brands like Pepsi and Coke. How many times have they changed their logos?
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and they've been around for how long? You know, and so we need to make sure that we keep in mind, again, don't get lost in the weeds. And the most important thing is for your business is your customer service. That that you're giving them, not just like if they call support, but you know, just the products that you're producing, or the you know, the quality of the content in the course or whatever you're creating, that they're getting not just what they paid for, but above and beyond that. Because getting what you paid for is what gives you a content customer, or even a happy customer. Giving above and beyond what they expect is what gives you a repeat customer.
Exactly.
And again,
and word of mouth, you know, they will tell other people, and that's worth a lot, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Unfortunately, the word of mouth works both ways, you know.
Yes.
and if you get what I found, and I think there were probably studies about this, but what I found in market research is that you get more word of mouth when it's something negative than when it's something positive. Yes. So you almost have to go that much further above and beyond to get that positive feedback. But when you do, people love to hear about good things. You know, there's so much negativity in this world. People love to hear good information, positive information. And so even if, you know, for every 10 happy customers, you only get, you know, 2 referrals, those 2 referrals are going to be that much more excited because it's positive, you know?
Yes. Yes.
So it's important. It's important to keep in mind that your number one thing is the customer, because without that, you know, your business is not going to succeed. It's just a fact. It's just a fact. You know, if you don't have people buying it, you're not gonna succeed. But so yeah, so obviously your customer service is the most important. The quality of the content, but yeah, I mean, you really want to get those repeat customers, because like I said, that's the closest thing to passive income as you can get, is, you know, people that without you running ads, without you telling them to buy again, they want to buy again. And so getting back to the whole topic of today's episode is the brand, regardless of whether that's just your business name or you have a logo and all that other stuff, giving them something to recognize, which is really good for if you do decide to kind of branch out and build your business. How will they know that new thing is you if they don't recognize your brand?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a really important point. I think I knew that, but I hadn't thought about it, and you've just put it into words, and that's a very good point. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I've done it myself. The course that I created is not is not Keith Wheeler Books, which is where a lot of my followers from the YouTube channel go. But because I did, make it, I let people know ahead of time, and I let them know what to expect, and I did it with, that one I do happen to have a logo, and I showed that logo enough to where people got that recognition. And I did that before I did a launch. Before I even, made anybody aware, made it available, I made people aware of it. So that way, when they did see it, they knew what to expect. Again, because they then associated it with me. So it's okay to branch out on your business, but again, having that brand recognition, so that way people can know what to expect, because there's no sense in reinventing the wheel. If you already have their know, like, and trust, then just add that recognition along with it.
That's it. Yeah, that's absolutely right. And that's what it's all about. That's what a brand is. It's about the recognition, nothing else. And you don't need a logo or a special font or anything like that for that, because people will recognize you. I don't know. You don't have a logo, Keith, do you?
I do not. No, Keith Wheeler Books does not have a logo. I was just
thinking, has Keith got a logo? No, I can't.
No.
But I still know who Keith Wheeler is. I still know your brand. When I first started watching your videos, for example, I knew what you were about. I knew what I would get from your channel. And when I needed help with a particular thing that was to do with publishing, I used to go to your channel. I still do. So that's your brand. It's you don't need a logo.
No, absolutely. Yeah. You don't need one, but if you do have a logo, again, I would say keep it simple. And it's all about whatever your brand is, giving the customer, letting them know what to expect before they even buy from you. So that way they do buy from you.
Yes.
But it's about getting that brand recognition and making those customers repeat customers.
Mm-hmm. That's what we want.
That's it. This has been another great mastermind, area, and a big thank you to each and every one of you listeners and viewers who came to tag along. If you enjoyed today's mastermind, it would mean the world to us if you followed or just subscribed to the podcast on your favorite listening platform. And while you're at it, go on and leave a review. What are we going to talk about next week, Neria?
Next week, we'll have a really good topic as well. I love all these topics, but next week is really good. It's imposter syndrome. Again, something I suffer from.
Yeah, imposter syndrome is one of those things that I suffered from, but didn't realize it had a name, so it's definitely going to be another good one. So until next week, I've been Keith Wheeler.
And I've been Nuria Corby.
Have yourselves a good one.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining the Mastermind today. Be sure to follow the podcast on your platform of choice and tell a friend who would enjoy it too. Your support is greatly appreciated. This has been the Masterminding Success Podcast.